This is the 2023 Toyota Crown, a nameplate that has been around since 1955 but was discontinued in the US in 1972. Now, surprisingly, it's made a comeback in quite a bold way. The extrovert Crown takes over from where the more sedate Avalon left off. It's taller, sleeker, sportier and upscale. So today I'm going to test it and see exactly how good it is. Interestingly, the car it resembles the most is the Honda Crosstour, if you remember that car. Came out in 2010, but was discontinued in 2015 due to poor sales. So what Toyota's done here is they've designed a car with a high crossover-like seating position that's been designed like a four-door sedan. It's quirky, but will anyone want one? So this high-riding stance is mostly a trick because it's 3.7 inches taller at the roofline than a Camry Avalon was, but its ground clearance is a mere tenth higher than those cars at 5.8 inches. So styling is mostly love or hate. I kind of like it. It is definitely quirky. For instance, this entire grille here is solid, much like an EV. It does let air into the engine here, and it has this small splitter along the bottom. LED lights on both sides cap off the overall look. So from the back, it actually looks like a black car. This one has the two-tone paint treatment, not something I would pay an additional $500 for. You can get it in red and black, bronze and black, or this sort of grayish silver. Along the back here you see Crown, Avalon, and then this one is a hybrid max. We'll talk about the engine powertrain in a second. But the biggest single thing that I don't like about this, and remember this car competes with the VW Arteon directly, being a four-door sedan too, is this trunk lid is exactly what it is. It's a trunk lid, and I think it should be a hatch. So speaking of the trunk, you get, this one has the rubber mat package all around back, front, and also in the trunk here. Under here, you do get a small spare wheel, and then these two pull and pull here, lower the back seats for a poke through. It's not as good as a hatchback, but it's something. So every Crown is all-wheel drive with a hybrid. On the two lower models, the XLE and the Limited, you get a 2.5 litre Atkinson cycle, four-cylinder engine, naturally aspirated, and 3 electric motors, giving a total output of 236 horsepower, driven through a CVT transmission. The rear axle is electric only. There's no drive shaft connecting the engine to that motor, and 0 to 60 takes around 7.5 seconds, but it is more economical than this one, which is the Hybrid Max. The Hybrid Max is only available in this Platinum trim. It's got a 2-litre turbocharged engine, 2 electric motors, one between the transmission and the engine, and another one at the rear. Combined power is 340 horsepower, 400 foot-pounds of torque. It's driven through a 6-speed conventional automatic with a wet clutch instead of a torque converter. 0 to 60 takes 5.7 seconds, and if you have a light right foot, you get around 32 miles to the gallon on the highway. The Platinum trim also gets adaptive dampers and these unique 21-inch wheels wearing these Michelin all-season tires. They're 225/45, so a little bit lower profile than the base model, but in my opinion, they need to be wider. They need to have a little bit more rubber on the road. I think these are a little bit too skinny for this particular car. So the Crown is technically a replacement for the Avalon. It's obviously a lot more bold in its design. It's also more expensive. So how much is this Platinum model? Well, Platinum start around $52,350. This one's got two options. The two-tone paint that I mentioned, it's around $550, and then puddle lamps, which are $463. Include destination, and you're at around $55,000. I think that's a lot. Definitely plenty of room in the back. This seat is where I would have it for driving, and there's plenty of leg room for me. Headroom is not too bad. There's a scalloped area here to stop your head hitting the roof, otherwise it would hit on this. But the roof does slope back somewhat, so for taller people, you probably would have a bit of a problem. Heated rear seats in the back. Backseat passengers get 2 USBs and obviously some HVAC vents. And you get a nice center armrest with some generous cup holders. So inside the Crown, it's not particularly flashy. There's no pieces of accent trim anywhere. It's all black, but it is impeccably assembled. Both front seats are heated and cooled and have multi-way power. The steering wheel feels nice in your hands. There's various typical controls on it as well. And the seats are really soft and very supportive. So all Crowns come with a 12.3-inch digital display running Toyota's latest software. This one's very nicely integrated into the dash. I don't think it'll look out of place in a Lexus. The screen's super easy to use, super quick software. You've got your music, you've got your settings, you've got your phone, etc. And then below that, which is what I like, a physical volume button. Below the vents, you get all of your physical HVAC controls, including your controls for heated and cooled seats. I really like the design of the center stack. So up front, you get a wireless charger, which works through my case. Immediately behind that Wi-Fi charger, you get view, and that gives you the excellent 360-degree view camera. There's more power here if you have a cable. So the cup holder section as well, I think, is nicely designed. You do get 3 altogether, but then you can remove this section if you want to store other stuff. Press shifter is alive and well, and then further back here you get a couple of controls. You got your parking brake, you got hill hold, traction control off, and then your drive modes. Yes, it has adaptive suspension, so it has drive modes. They are from the bottom: Eco, Comfort, Normal, Sport, Sport S, and Custom. A lot of choices. Another thing I like is the storage in the center console, which is also the armrest. You can open it like that, or the passenger can open it like that. Inside, you get a decent amount of space. There's another USB, and then a little tray here that you can take out. Platinum also comes with a glass roof covered by this shade, which peels back so you can see the stars. It doesn't actually open. Pretty clean looking digital display up front, speedometer in the middle, also to the right, fuel, range, and then average MPG. Only had the car for a day, 13's not very good. Platinum also gets a memory seat option and a JBL sound system, which I'll be honest is one of the few negatives about this car. It really isn't very good. So let's take it for a drive. One thing I didn't mention was this particular engine powertrain combo is virtually identical to the one in the Grand Highlander that I just drove, except for it has the same torque numbers, 400, but it produces a little bit less horsepower, which is fine because this car weighs a hell of a lot less than a Grand Highlander. So let's get going here. And if you stomp on it, so smooth. So I'm going to set this into the most aggressive mode, Sport S Plus. It does firm up the suspension, the steering is a little firmer, the dash flashes at you a little bit. It doesn't make it any faster, but it certainly firms up the suspension. But even in this firmest setting, it's actually all right. It's not too harsh. So that 400 foot-pounds is available everywhere because even from a standstill, the electric motors are there. Even if you're in the wrong gear, because it's a 6-speed transmission, but the electric motors fill in the holes of where you don't have torque available. So it's a turbo 4, there's obviously some lag, but you don't feel any lag at all in this car. Stomp on it from a red light and the whole front raises up, mainly because of the suspension's soft. But this thing goes. Here's the thing that it isn't. It isn't sporty in the way that an Arteon is sporty. It's just not set up that way. So you've got to take that into consideration that, you know, if you want something sporty, this may not be the car for you. If you want something that is unbelievably comfortable, has tons of power when you need it, and if you want to hustle, it will hustle. Stomp on the gas, take it around some twisties, and it does hang on, but as I said earlier, it needs more rubber. 225s are not cutting it. Maybe 235s or 245s, but it definitely, 225s are just not. They're not cutting it. Now these tires are Michelin's. They're all seasons. They're not complaining in any way, but if you fancied your chances of getting one of these, because it's going to be difficult, and you finally got one, I'd stick some bigger tires on it. Wear these ones out and stick some bigger tires on it. But that said, the handling is actually really good. It turns in, the adaptive suspension is doing its best to keep these four wheels on the road. The electric motor shoves from the back. I haven't had these tires squeal yet, which is always a good thing. And they feel pretty decent, even in the sidewalls. Now, the steering is good. It's reasonably direct, changes direction pretty well. What isn't good, and if you remember my review of the Grand Highlander, the brakes, for me, the brake feel is not right. It just takes way too much pressure to get the brakes to stop. You almost feel like the car isn't going to stop. It does, but they're not as reassuring as I would like. All right, hard on the gas. So smooth. It's amazing what they've done, and it's very quiet in the cabin. You can probably hear the engine, but it doesn't sound like a buzzy four-cylinder. All right, power out. Wow. So they say 0 to 60 takes about 5.7 seconds. There's some people have got it to launch quicker than that. It does not have a launch control yet. Something Toyota says is to do with that wet clutch setup, but it is built to do launches, so they're going to be adding a launch control to this car in the near future. All right, slow down for a little bit and let's talk about the seats. Very comfortable, leather covered, got a decent side bolstering, both here and also for the legs. Can't complain about that at all. Chassis is very composed though, despite it being a little soft, and it does roll a little bit in the corners, but it doesn't feel like it doesn't want to take a corner fast. In fact, it just did. So I can't complain about that. I'm not getting any kind of understeer yet, although with grippier tires that would mitigate any understeer that it might have. So I hope this works out for Toyota. I mean, obviously the Crosstour failed. I think this is a better looking car than the Crosstour. Got a better powertrain, certainly in this Platinum model. So I hope people, don't go to Toyota and think about buying a Crown and then just go ahead and buy a crossover. I'd like to think this car might save the sedans. All right, passing another vehicle. So much torque to get past, and no lag whatsoever. Just turbo spins up, the motors kick in, and it just goes. It's always unnerving to me that there's no tachometer on these hybrids, and I always wonder, well, what kind of, how far am I going? But there's obviously electronics involved here that are stopping me from hitting any kind of limiter. So you just mash the pedal and go. Now this road's got some sort of bumps. You can probably see me sort of moving up and down, but this thing flies, and you get up to some obscene speeds quite quickly. Hard right. it's very composed. I'm liking this car. Now, when you're in the car itself, you're high enough up that you actually sort of feel like you're in a crossover, but you're not. It's basically a tall sedan. I just wish it had a hatchback instead of a trunk lid. That's a big miss. But it's definitely an enjoyable drive. All right, I've reached my little turnaround point here. We could do just a quick launch and see how it is. I didn't bring my timing equipment today, so I can't tell you. I feel like 5.7 is easily achievable with this car because it gets off the line like a rocket. I don't know even if I can do I could turn the traction control off. Let's see, can I do a brake boost? No, it doesn't like a brake boost and warns me, but we could just go and see what happens. $60. I feel with a launch control, there was a little bit of a delay. I feel with the launch control, it might go quicker. But yeah, it's definitely a sub 6 second car, and it could be a 5.5 second car or quicker. I like to be pleasantly surprised, and I am pleasantly surprised. Because from the looks of it on the outside, it just doesn't look like it would perform anywhere near as well as it is performing. So what do we think? Well, this is a difficult one because the Crown goes head to head with the very good VW Arteon SEL all-wheel drive, and that car is quicker with less power. It's also less expensive by around $4,500, but you do get Toyota's famous reliability. In my opinion, this is a very quirky option instead of buying a crossover, and that 6-speed transmission is one of the smoothest that I've ever driven. Anyway, once again, thanks for watching. We appreciate it. Like, subscribe, and we'll catch you next time with another video.